Back to some of that good old R&B, jazz fusion, big time on this fancy playlist of August 29th, 1987. How you doing? It's Dean Kirk getting down on the countdown. And coming up later on the countdown, Curiosity Killed the Cat, which is a big band in England. ABC, Grateful Dead, a comeback for the Grateful Dead. That's one of the extraordinary things about the 80s. These old school bands from the 60s making a comeback in the 80s, like the Moody Blues, the Grateful Dead. The Grateful Dead had their sole top 40 hit, as a matter of fact, in 1987. That's coming up later on. Alexander O'Neill, we're going to get down on some of that jams right there. Huey Lewis and the News, Jelly Bean, Bananarama, LL Cool J with his first pop top 40 Hot 100 record. Not first Hot 100 record, but first top 40 Hot 100 record. But now we're at number 25, up 9 from 34. This is a perfect summertime soundtrack, a very joyous, rapturous, vocal, infused with gospel on this record. Jonathon Butler with Lies. Fancy playlist at number 25, up 9 from 34. Boy, I tell you what, it was a one-hit wonder of sorts for Jonathon Butler. But here's the thing about Jonathon Butler. He's one of those artists who seems like he just came right out of the blue and had that big hit and then just faded right back. But Jonathon Butler, he had been in the business for quite a while. And when I did a little bit of research on him, I was pretty amazed. He had some success in his home country of South Africa. Some years, a decade before he came out with Lies. Now, he is from Cape Town, South Africa, guitar player, a R&B artist, pop, jazz fusion, a little bit of Christian or gospel thrown into the mix. One of the, I love this, boy, yeah, getting those old school artists from back in the day, man, when I was real young. One of the artists that he was influenced by when he was growing up in South Africa, she was really huge in South Africa. She only had that one hit here in the States. Miriam Makeba with Pata Pata, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Pata Pata, back in the fall of 1967, one of the best pop records, but seldom, it is a travesty, seldom heard on the Odie station. But she had that one hit, but I'm sure she's had a whole bunch of others in South Africa. And he also, Jonathon Butler, he embeds some of that American soul and jazz as well, influenced by Stevie Wonder and George Benson. As a matter of fact, he's been compared to George Benson. Hear a little bit of Al Jarreau in there too sometimes. And now here's the thing about South Africa, though. He grew up under the oppression of apartheid. Rampant racism there in South Africa, certainly comparable to what it was like here in the South before the mid-60s, and yet he still scored some success. He started singing and doing music when he was very young, joined a traveling stage show when he was 7 years old. Now, somewhere along the way, when he was real young, he got some kind of record contract or got some kind of contract where he would record a number of records. And boy, he had a couple of top tens in South Africa in the mid-70s. He was only about 14, 15, 16 years old. The dude was a teen idol back in the day. Please Stay, he covered Please Stay by the Drifters, a beautiful record by the Drifters. Nice harmonies there. The Drifters, that was a big hit for the Drifters in 61. He brought that back to South Africa in the mid-70s, about 1974, 75. And then he covered another oldie, another one from 1961, a beautiful record by the Paris Sisters, I Love How You Love Me. He took his version. Jonathon Butler took his version of that song, the number 4. And South Africa, he had another one in 1976 called I'll Be Home. Now, one source has it that a producer in England, a British producer, big name, sort of a marquee name if you're really into the business. His name was Clive Calder. He signed him to the Jive record label in 1977. But another source has it, and I'll probably go with this other source, that actually in 1977, Jonathon Butler, he signed to a predecessor of Jive Records. He was there for a little while, and then he signed to another record label. I believe it was a Mountain record label. But then his manager signed him to Jive Records, and bottom line is, by the early 80s, Jonathon Butler, he had signed with Jive Records, and he moved to England. He stayed in England for about 17 years. He made an album mostly of instrumentals called Introducing Jonathon Butler, and this is when a lot of people compared him to Benson. See, the thing about Jonathon Butler was earlier on, when he was very young, people started encouraging him. Man, you got some talent. Do some songwriting. Do some singing and songwriting. Now, he did some protest songs. He wrote some protest songs, but he was probably more mainstream than political per se. And he came out with that instrumental album, mostly instrumental. He was nominated. No, actually, he won something called the Sari is S-A-R-I-E, Sari, I believe is how you pronounce it, award. And that's the South African equivalent to the Grammys. So that was a big deal. And this was, I think, early on in the 80s. In 1987, he came out with that album. He came out with the album that Lies was on. It was a self-titled album. He also covered a 1970. Boy, he did some covers. He knocked out on those covers. He covered a song with Ruby Turner. She was a British R&B singer, a session singer too, and he covered he covered a song by the Staple Singers, "If You're Ready, Come Go With Me," which was a hit by the Staple Singers from back in 1973. So we're talking about a very soulful gospel artist, Jonathon Butler. And now he joined. Now I know I'm throwing all sorts of things at you because I'm just all over the road on this thing. He joined a band at one point in his career, early in his career, when he was encouraged to become a singer and a songwriter. He joined a band, a South African outfit. It was a big, pretty popular jazz rock outfit in Cape Town called the Pacific Express. He was in that band for several years, maybe 2 or 3 years. They put out a couple of albums, that band did, and of course he made his move to England. And Lies did okay. I guess it's one of those things you don't hear too often on the oldie stations, which is unfortunate. Went to number 27 on Billboard's Hot 100, although it did a little bit better in England, where it went to number 18. It was top 20 in England. But one other tidbit I came across, this is very close to home. Back in 2000, I should have got the year of this. I think it's about 2006. It might have been a little later than that. He was a featured vocalist. Jonathon Butler was a featured vocalist on a gospel album. It was called Gospel Goes Classical. It was produced by a guy named Henry Panion, a music professor at the University of Alabama in Birmingham. And that album, Gospel Goes Classical, with the number 2 on the gospel charts, Billboard's gospel charts. Number 2 on the gospel charts on Billboard. And so he had some major success. He had a pretty prolific career, Jonathon Butler. And he is at number 25 on my fantasy playlist of August 29th, 1987.